I just need to hit OK on that.
All
If
right.
you're OK.
Well, go.
Someone else
Um,
coming in?
yeah, they'll pop up here one
Okay.
second. Hello, Kathleen.
Hi.
Well, we appreciate, Chad and I appreciate all of you joining us. We some discussions with the bishop over a number of months, and it sort of came to light that a lot of people don't even know the resources that we have available on the at the diocese. So we thought, well, let's start the this meeting with sort of a sharing of what is available, and then just talk to you folks and see what you'd like to hear or see on future calls. Now, this is primarily for treasurers and administrators, but really anybody in the diocese is welcome to this information because it's all publicly available out on our website.
And then we'll also have an open question, a time where, anything you have a question about, it's a good time to ask
Yeah, yeah. And if we don't know the answer, we'll figure it out. We don't know a lot. We don't know a lot of stuff, but
it. Yeah.
we may get lucky. Maybe one of those blind squirrels. Chad, I'm going
Tom,
to
oh, yeah. Do you want to do a share screen and go through the website, or do
yeah. Why don't I do that?
I have to give you permission, or you?
I am trying to see. I got so much stuff open here. I should have closed some of it. Let me see here. Advanced files, apps. Not sure why I'm not seeing what I was hoping to see here. Let me
Let
call
me,
this up again before I click over on this. And no, that took me out of there. Chad, can you pull up our web? Oh, here we go. Here we go. I got it. I just had to click on it. All right. So let me come back down here, share that. All right. Is everyone seeing
there we go.
our website here?
Mhm.
Yep.
And again, this is nothing new. It's been out here for quite a while, but a lot of people just haven't gone out and poked around at some of the things. And I'm not going to go into a lot of the other committees and things because, frankly, I'm not sure what they have out there. The Shape by Faith is again one of the very active programs that's going on right now at the diocese, and hopefully we've advertised enough, or some of you have taken advantage of some of the grants that are available. But there's a lot of information out there on the grants, on the application itself, a lot of a short dialogue on the various awards that have been giving out, and again, a lot of the stories of how it's benefiting the churches. And we really encourage all the parishes to apply for the grants. Each year we have $500,000 that we have set aside for this purpose. There's specific things that they can be used for, and that is shown on the website here. But there's a lot of good things that can come from it. The about our diocese type of thing, I'm just going to take you right into the finance and operations. And if those of you that haven't had a chance to look around at this, we have it set up basically with three different silos. We have our budget and what we're working on. This is our current year budget, and then prior 2 years, we have the financial results that we have experienced over the last several years, and an audit report. And Chad and I are just polishing off getting the 2021 and 2022 and 2023 audits completed by a local CPA firm. We got backed up there with pandemic and everything else. The accounting firms were overwhelmed and under-resourced, and so we fell behind a little bit on that. But we expect to have everything caught up by the end of this calendar year, so that we can go into next year with just the 1 year to be audited. There's been no surprises, thank goodness. Chad and Barb and his staff have done an excellent job in keeping things in order. And then we have the Shape by Faith results and the finances out there. If I go back over to the let's see, where is this? The financial resources. If I click on that, it's going to give us some additional information. It's going to give us the some of the information on the diocesan grants and loans and what that looks like, and just some, what you can fund it for, what the and where the applications are. So there's, there are loans available out there. I know a number of your parishes have taken advantage of those. They're low interest loans for specific purposes, primarily coming out of endowments that were set up for this specific purpose by some of our past parishioners. And we got somebody wanting to come in. I'm going to let them in. Chad. Oh, Chad's on the phone. All right. If I go back a screen and can do that without taking me too far back here, I'll just go back up here.
Sorry, a little technical support to people joining.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Some of the other financial resources, we have the Diocesan Pooled Investment Fund. We have the parish treasurers and financial administrators. And hopefully all of you folks knew this was out here to take a look at it, but there's a bunch of information out here. There's a sample treasurer's job description. What are you supposed to do? Suddenly, you're dubbed the parish treasurer. What do I do? What am I supposed to do? What are things? What are some of the guidelines that have been set up to help me with my job and also to stay within the Episcopal canons? And again, speaking, our canons are slightly different maybe than the canons at New York and at the national level, but they started from that. Our manual of business methods. This gives you everything from internal audits to external audits to how you're supposed to pay your bills. All that information is out there online. Taxes in the Episcopal Church, what's covered there. And again, that's just a small piece of the actual business manual. When we went through there and we looked at some things that were more common questions with people, we found out, geez, taxes were one of the things. Audit guidelines. What are they? What is a parish supposed to do? How often are they supposed to do an audit? And what's involved in an audit? Is it really a full-blown audit, or is it more of a financial review and that type of thing? There's budgeting information. How to do the budget. Why do you do the budget? And what's required in the budget. Some of the Diocese of Central Pennsylvania's employee compensation guidelines. Each of us has some authority, either a full-time priest or a part-time priest, or some ministry that is governing the church that's helping all of us in our walk. And what are our requirements to pay there? And then somebody was saying, geez, I really don't even know how to balance a checkbook. And that was maybe a major question that they had at their parish. So we said, there's lots and lots of things out there on YouTube. And this one seemed to be exceptionally good on balancing a checkbook. So I said, let's get it out there on the video. If you find that there's other things that you can use help with that you think may be helpful to other parishes, let Chad and I know, and we can get it, a YouTube video or something, we can share it out here on the website for other people to use. Go back over to the the parish assessments and the fair share. That is all posted out here, and how it's calculated and what the assessments were and that type of thing. Again, it's full disclosure with up to all the parishes of who's paying what and what's going on and how it's calculated. Again, it's sort of funny how our budgets are set up. Is the way the canons are written. Chad and I will come up with a budget, and then we submit it to the finance committee, and then the finance committee goes to council of trustees, and then it goes to convention. And if it's approved at the convention, then they establish what the fair share is going to be. So it's based, in theory, it's a balanced budget, because we're supposed to, well, in theory, we have the latitude of saying, okay, if for a few dollars in arrears, we can adjust all the parish's fair share to do that in order to get a balanced budget. We don't do that, but that's how the canons are written, and it's sort of backwards. We're spending we're spending according to the how the finances are, not how the finances are coming in, but how we need them, and then we'll shake the tree until we have enough dollars falling out of it in order to get a balanced budget. So just if you see that in the canons, if you're looking to go through that's a little bit of a difference, and I think that's also the way it works at the national church too, right, Chad? Because I think that's
I
passed down
believe,
in
I believe
the
so.
canons.
Yeah.
So, but for whatever it's worth. So, any questions on our website? I went through a lot there. Hopefully, all of you have been out there and poked around before. If not, it's uh, it's included on all of our typically on all of our return addresses. It has the link to the Diocese of Central Pennsylvania's website, but it's a lot of information out there, and it's there for you to use in the guide.
I can't see everybody with the screen share. So if you do have a question, please
Just call out. Yeah.
just
All right. Well, that was
I do have a question.
yes.
Judy Hawthorne from Mount Calvary. With the new labor law, does the diocese have a plan to address the issue of employees going from salary to hourly and some type of tracking for that for each parish to use?
so I'm what I'm gonna say is the semi HR person with the diocese. So we try to keep up as best we can um with labor law changes. Is this the one kind of referring to the changes with who can be considered exempt or who should be considered exempt?
This is if now the salary increase. For example, I work at a place where our educator was a salaried employee and making under like $50,000. I think the cap was 58, and now he is an hourly employee. And he must keep track of his time, including anything over the 40-hour work week or whatever, 36 and a half hour work week. So we have obviously a choir director and we have an educated Christian ed person, and they clearly make under that.
Right.
And our payment schedule is, at 26 weeks, we take the salary they, agreed upon
Yeah,
and we divide it
divided.
up. So now I guess we need to figure out how we keep track of everybody's hours and equate that to the amount we've promised them.
Right. Just to shed a little bit more light on the topic in general, um, it was okay to pay individuals um, a salary, regardless of how much they make. You didn't have to necessarily, break it into an hourly compensation instead of just using a flat salary. And then eventually, if somebody is making a certain level of compensation and also meets some other criteria, that salaried individual uh, would be considered exempt, which means you're salaried for, and your work week, let's say, is a typical 40-hour a day work week. Your employer could ask you to work an extra 10 hours and you don't get paid for those additional hours. It's just, you got to put in more hours. that's how we operate with several of our staff members, including me. You know, I'm compensated based on a 40-hour work week, but I can't remember the last time I worked a 40-hour work week. I typically work more, not less. So circling back to the question, it sounds like the government wants to make sure that those people that don't qualify as being exempt, because exempt individuals don't need to keep track of their hours. But if you don't qualify, which is probably a majority of the positions in our parishes, with the exception of the clergy member, they would need to, instead of having a flat salary and you assume they work 40 hours a week or 30 or 20 or whatever, that they need to report those hours. So what we do, for instance, with our employees that are part-time, or hourly, is that they actually have to fill in a spreadsheet and send it into Barb Hoffman, who's my associate, to process it then for payroll. So they would fill in, the spreadsheet would basically have 31 days on it, and they would just fill in how many hours they worked on each particular day that they worked. I'll have to look at the legal requirements of that change to make sure they don't have any other specific reporting requirements, but I would suspect that that would be enough, and you would want to keep a copy of that spreadsheet with your records.
Well, when it comes to payroll, though, you just continue to pay them by dividing their salary up?
Well, it probably depends a little bit on your payroll service. For salary people who are exempt, it's the same paycheck every 2 weeks, for instance.
Correct.
Twice a month. For hourly, you typically report those number of hours that the employee reported, a week ahead of time before the check is cut, and your payroll provider will cut the check based on that number of hours. But you need to provide your payroll provider what is their hourly rate.
Right, I understand all of that. We now have, though, salaried people that we have to put into hourly. So are we just now saying you're going to be making this much an hour?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. You're gonna look at their contract and say, they were getting paid a salary, and maybe if it's a part-time person figuring 1,000 hours a year, and you divide that into the salary they've been paid, here's your hourly rate.
Okay. And
then if for some reason there's a particular week, let's say over the holidays, that individual works, instead of their scheduled 30 hours a week, works 50 hours that week, then you would have to take their compensation above that 40 hours and pay them a time and a half.
Right.
So those hours would be considered overtime. Tom, would you mind turning off the screen share?
Yep.
Thank you.
Judy,
so in your Christmas example, if a person goes from 30 hours a week to 20 hours a week, are you suggesting that we then cut their pay and just take 20 times their hourly rate, or stay with what
No, you would go by 20 hours that week.
Yep. Whatever hours they work. Yeah.
Judy, unless they use like vacation time or something along those lines, but
yeah. Judy,
I could see where that would be. You could really get into the weeds of, well, they work 30 hours this week because it's Christmas week, but they work 10 hours, and then all of a sudden we're paying them overtime for 1 week, and And then,
Right, but usually it's a pretty significant um number of hours. I mean, I'm pretty sure off the top of my head it's 40, anything over 40 hours a week triggers the time and a half for those additional hours.
right,
But yeah, it's just it's definitely a requirement. So
yeah,
you have to kind of do a little bit more planning with what you're asking employees to do and when.
right,
Typically there's a carve out too for if it's in your instance of it, Christmas holiday, 8 hours they're getting paid, holiday pay and that's not counted in towards
Yeah, that's
their overtime. Or if they're using some vacation time, they don't add that to their 38 or 32 hours that come up to 40, because they're using it out of a different pool of labor. I'm not familiar enough with that, Judy. Do you know whether there's a carve out with any type of industry? Are nonprofits included? Is it just business? Is it profit?
I haven't read the whole thing and,
Okay.
yeah, that's something I'll do, but I haven't read the whole thing, so I don't know if there's any caveats or not.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
nonprofits are included
Are they?
in that. There's a carve out for teachers, I think, but there's a carve out for teachers and somebody else,
Nurses,
but
nurses,
not for churches.
not
But
for
mainly the
churches.
thing is, it's just, it's time and a half over 40 hours a week. Honestly, the main purpose of the law is to, like some of these fast food places, I'll hire seriously. I mean,
Oh,
they'll
yeah.
hire some kid who's 25 years old and say, you're a manager. We're going to give you a salary of 30,000 a year and work you 80 hours a
yeah.
week. And
Right.
it's really to crack down on the worst of those offenders. So I think the limit right now is it's 844 a week. So whatever
Okay.
that is hourly.
And then they also have to get that exemption status, they also have to meet some specific criteria, what their responsibilities are.
Yeah, professional, managerial,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, like I said, it's really they're not trying to hit on. I mean, churches aren't exempt, but they're not really trying.
Yeah,
We
it's
aren't the
not the
people they're
target
looking
of
for.
it.
How's that?
Right.
Dick, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, this is Dick Rose with St. Mary's in Waynesboro. And I do have a question. We've been struggling to keep a treasurer active, and I've gone back and forth and filled the job when we can't get anybody else. And fortunately, a couple of years ago, we had a parishioner who stepped up and said, well, let's hire somebody as a bookkeeper, at least pay the bills that way. And that's working out fairly well, except, I feel as a treasurer that I still have the same responsibilities. I just can't assume that everything is okay. So every month when I get the reports and then she also gives me a QuickBook file that I load into mine and I double check everything and it can become pretty labor intensive nevertheless. In that regard, I heard a rumor that there was possibly something being explored to consolidate some parishes for support, along the financial lines. Treasurer, I guess specifically is what I'm saying, financial management side. Is there anything going on in that regard to give the parishes some help?
There is, Dick, but it's not at the treasurer level. It's at the bookkeeper level. And actually, one of the folks on this call can address something that he just did that with his parish, and he is sharing a bookkeeper with another parish. There's also a really good resource in the area called the Parish Resource Center. They're in Lancaster, and they do this for lots and lots of churches. But again, it doesn't take the responsibility away from the vestry and from the treasurer to oversee that. My understanding, but you're not cutting paychecks and chasing down people's hours to do payroll and that type of stuff. You're stepping back into the managerial role of a treasurer, as opposed to the the grunt work of being a bookkeeper and getting that done. In a lot of parishes, it requires both. But there are, and I know Wayne has done that with St. Thomas and with Mount Hope. They are sharing a bookkeeper, and I think it's worked out pretty well, right, Wayne?
Yeah, it's worked out real well. We were at the point where we wanted to change systems because we weren't happy with using what we were doing. It was quite complex, and we were changing. We had our existing person was retiring, and we were looking for somebody else. We knew it was going to be hard to train somebody, so we looked at what Hope was using, and we decided to move over to QuickBooks, and then also brought in software called Breeze, where we used to track people's pledges and things like that, and communication, and it's worked out real well because she works at our church. I mean, we've cut our time down. I bet the time we're doing now is probably a third of the time we were actually spending previous couple of years, because it's just so much quicker to when you link it into your checkbook and everything. It flows much better. Automatic payroll, taxes are paid automatically by QuickBooks, and all that kind of stuff. So she had the experience on those software packages at Mount Hope. We brought her in, and she works on average probably 3 to 4 hours a week. And I'm with her there, so I can answer questions and be supportive of any questions she may have, and kind of do my part while she's doing that work. But it's worked out real well.
Thanks, Wayne.
Dick, if I could follow up just a little bit. One thing, and maybe this is a more detailed conversation we could have offline. When it comes to the role of a treasurer, it can go, but I mean it's a really wide spectrum on how people interpret that role and how they participate in that role. So you have treasurers that are just kind of like, hand me the profit and loss for the month, and I'll peek at it, and if I see a problem, I'll let you know. And then you have the other end of the spectrum where your treasurer is combing through every line item, kind of analyzing it, which in itself almost can, depending on the number of transactions and everything, really suck up a day's worth of time or a week's worth, and end up almost being like a full-time job. Finding that balance is I think very important, not only for the parish, but also for the person serving as treasurer. And so, for instance, one of the big fears as the canon of finance with the diocese is whenever we get a new treasurer, I get knots in my stomach, because I'm worried that we're going to end up with somebody that is just, I might as well put him in my office and have him here 8 hours a day. Tom luckily knew exactly what he was doing, to where he knows where to look and what to look at and where to ask the questions. So, you don't come through every, he'll look at a list of transactions, but, he knows which ones to say, okay, I'm going to ask about that one, or I'm going to ask about that one. It's kind of that making sure you're going through the finances to make sure things, as you sample them, make sense and, or quote, on the up and up. And when you get a new treasurer or bookkeeper, a new bookkeeper, you got to kind of ramp up to that. You would want to check more things out of the gate, but then hopefully develop a little bit more of a trust, but you still have to maintain a level of oversight just to make sure things are, you know, again, on the up and up. And so, but as Tom had mentioned, unfortunately, we can't, as a diocese, kind of replace that role of treasurer within a parish. But, you know, we are working on finding ways that, you know, we as a diocese, or we engage a third party that will kind of serve a lot more on the bookkeeping role.
Does that answer the question, Dick?
Well, yeah, I guess we're going through a period of transition, as Chad probably knows, and we're bringing a new priest on board. It's caused some additional paperwork. I mean, there's extra bills and getting everything set up and
Yeah.
in the payroll, and it has been a little bit tough on the bookkeeper, and she's had to put in some extra hours. And just recently, we've had some issues in because of that, and I don't know if she's going to stay on it after the end of this year, or if she does, she's going to probably increase the fee considerably. So we're looking at trying to find another way of doing this. And my ideal way to do it would be to get somebody in 8 hours a week or whatever it would take, and I'm not even sure how long that would be, to bring them in and, you know, where they're actually working right in the church, and I could work with them when I'm around, you know, to help out as much as possible. But it's just that we're in another period of transition here, and I'm trying to get as much information as I can,
Right.
and which way to go. So yeah, I mean, I didn't expect you to offer you know, $10,000 to get us a bookkeeper, but I thought I'd just throw it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you'd have a lot of luck, you know, hopefully. I guess the labor market's a little bit still challenged, but, you know, I think with bookkeepers in that type of position, there are a lot of people that are looking for kind of a part-time, you know, as you said, maybe 10 hours a week or something, position, and that might serve your needs.
Yeah, and keep an open mind about doing it remotely too. Maybe let's say you teamed up with you're in Waynesboro, so you teamed up with Chambersburg, or one of the other parishes in the area, Carlisle even, and you know get 10 hours from their bookkeeper, and you transmit stuff back and forth. The Parish Resource Center in Lancaster is set up to do that. They do that for churches all across the county and the state, I believe. But there's local CPA firms that'll take on bookkeepers in that too for 20 or 30 bucks an hour. And especially the ones that are dealing with nonprofits, and then you can get into maybe get your get some help when you're doing your audits with whether you're doing it with Chambersburg and they come and they review your work, and then you go and review their work once a year so that you have those audit requirements taken care of. But there's a lot you can do with the parishes right in your vicinity, and we lucked out with St. Thomas lucked out with Hope and with that bookkeeper. But like Chad said, there may be an opportunity where the bookkeeper at in Chambersburg or Carlisle or Shippensburg, they have an appetite for some additional hours.
Good, thanks. I do have just one, it's a different question. We've started our budget process, this week, and we obviously got a little bit of time, but I was just curious if you have any kind of timeline yet of when the diocesan guidance will come out, as far as, FOLA, those sorts of things.
So things like the parish assessment, I can get you what your assessment will be next week, but I charge a 5% premium to get it before convention.
He's trying to be a profit center there. We got to stop that.
Yeah, maybe we can get a grant for that.
Yeah. So what I have tried to do, and we did it last year. That might have been the first year. I know what the assessments are for parishes if nothing changes with the assessment formula. Our budget that is now past finance, past the Council of Trustees, doesn't have any change in the assessment methodology. So I'll typically send that out either next week or the week after, with next year's assessment amount, with the caveat that provided nothing happens at the convention that would change the budget. But that way you'd have it for planning purposes.
COLA we're figuring is what, gotta be 2.9?
Cost of living, or the COLA that we use, for instance, with our staff, is based on August, no, June,
July?
June to, not June to July, August of the previous year all the way up to July of this year. So it's a 12-month window, but it ending July 31st. And COLA was, or CPI was 2.9%. So that's what we built into our budget, and what we'll be using for clergy compensation adjustments if you add COLA into it. Investment withdrawals, we're sticking to the 5.5% withdrawal amount. And just as a reminder, that is for endowment funds that are, that are investments that were set up, for instance, by a will, or, a trust that, says you can, you can't, I hate to use these words, invade the principal, but that's not, we don't use principal and interest anymore. We use total value and a set withdrawal rate. But so if it's unrestricted money that you have in investments, you can, in theory, you can take out what you want. But here at the diocese, for instance, even if it's unrestricted, if it's in investments, we don't pull out more than 5.5%.
That's great. Good information. That'll get us started. Knowing it'll be a draft.
Yeah.
Any sensing at all on the medical
On the
side of
what?
it? On the medical and dental?
Medical and dental, you're
Oh.
expecting what, 11%?
Yeah.
It's
This year was a little bit different. It depends on what medical plan you have.
okay.
The one that we offer to our employees, well, we offer 3 or 4 different ones. The ones that employees naturally choose, which is the best one, is also the most expensive one. That one, they're increasing 11% this year. But on several of the other plans, like the PPO 90, is barely I think it's like 1%.
Wow.
The PPO 80, oh, here we go. Okay. The PPO 100 is 11% increase. The PPO 90 is 8%. The PPO 70, which I think is the other one of our plans, is 2.55%. And I think most parishes use, I think, the 70 or the 90. So, the average between the two of those is about 6.
And that is a blue?
A Blue?
A Blue Cross?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I needed then.
And no changes in, there's no increase in dental premiums this year because they switched to Delta Dental.
The 5.5% draw that you talked about, is that what amount is that based on? Are you using a look back period, or are you just using the value of a certain day, or how do you calculate that? That seems awfully high to me, but
So we base that, so when we calculate, for instance, we have, between the parishes, there must be like 50 accounts that we have with the Episcopal Church Foundation for parishes. So in the next couple of weeks, we take the 3-year average account value ending September 30th of each year. So we take the 3 most recent account values at the end of September, and then that average number, then you can take 5.5% of that average number.
We historically haven't needed to take that, Wilson, but that has been what was allowed for the last several years by council trustees, that was our cushion if we needed it.
Yeah, you don't have to take 5.5.
Right.
And to address, how do we come up with 5.5? Obviously, it's a little subjective, but when you look at our goal is to obviously make sure it's a rate lower than what the account's earning. So, 5.5 is the rate. The account on a 5-year average, I think, is in the ballpark of 7 or 8%. So you're taking out your 5.5%, you're still earning, or you're still keeping in there 3% of that growth. So you still get account growth, but also the income.
But with a 2.9% inflation factor, you're really just treading water, aren't you? I just think 5.5 is awfully high. We use at St. Stephen's, we use 4 with a 12-quarter look back period, so that we are always staying ahead of inflation. It sounds to me like, at 2.9% and 5.5, that's assuming an 8.4% annualized return just to
stay
hold steady.
Yeah. Yeah, that is one way of looking at it. But I think with the situation that a majority of parishes are in, or not a majority, but a good number of parishes are in, we at the same time have to make sure that we provide as much income as we can, or make available as much income as we can for the parish, so that that they can keep operating. So you're right. If you're dealing with a 3% inflation rate, you got to adjust that 3% somewhere. And you could say it. Do you apply that 3% against the 5.5% you took out, or the 3% you left in?
Yeah, and again, this was something that was set by the council of trustees late 2019, 18, something like that.
At least.
It's been in force for several years now, but luckily, we've had that as our cushion if we needed it, but we've had enough. The parishes have been wonderful about keeping up their assessments to keep that going, so that we haven't needed to draw down on that. Any other questions, treasury, bookkeeping, financial administration, as far as the parishes that we can help you with, or things you'd like to
I have a question. I'm with St. Paul's in Bloomsburg, and I'm very new to this treasurer position. And I have found so far it's very overwhelming. I have a lot to learn. The question right now that I've not heard about before is, and I have concerns about this legal requirement that you talked about earlier, going from salary to hourly, and who's exempt, and where do I find that information, and how it would apply to my parish if necessary, and who's exempt, and where do I get the information from?
You could, well, there's always Google, and you would Google, IRS regulations on, exempt employees and overtime, and that would probably get you enough links to lead you to the right page in the IRS manuals. You could also just, if you wanted to, email me a list of, you know, employees, how many hours a week they work, what their role is, their job title, and their hourly rate or salary rate, and then I could circle back with you and let you know which ones you.
How many people they're supervising directly and that type of thing. Yeah. So.
Okay. All right, I will do that. And the other question I have is what are you all using for, I heard someone say that they're using QuickBooks. Is anybody using the Power Church Plus for their accounts? No? Okay.
So
That's what we had been using, and that's what we struggled with, and decided to move to QuickBooks from Power Church.
You were
Okay.
using Power Church?
That's
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we sent out a survey to about 15 parishes to asking a bunch of different questions, and we were very curious about what platforms some of the smaller parishes use, and I was kind of shocked. We only really got 2 responses. One was QuickBooks, the other one was Excel. And I'm not sure Excel technically classifies as an accounting platform, but you know, if it's a small enough congregation and you're good at Excel, it can do the trick. But you know, I know there's a couple of other systems out there. I've never used them personally, but like
ACS, right?
Realm, I think.
Realm, right? That's what we use in Lancaster, St. John's in Lancaster.
Okay.
It's really more powerful than we need. And one of the issues of using a church design software like that, is it makes it more difficult to recruit bookkeepers, because, you know, most bookkeepers know Excel or know QuickBooks.
QuickBooks, yeah. Never thought about that, but that's a good point. It's a whole new learning curve.
Charles, does it do all of your accounting? Does it do your pledge statements and all that type of stuff also?
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah. The
very
feature
integrated.
that,
okay,
you know, this is Realm is kind of a dumbed down version of ACS, from the standpoint that it's not as flexible, but it's easier to use. And one of the facilities that we are not using is where parishioners can actually create their own account and do things online. So we're not that advanced, but we use Realm for just about everything else. And it's a good system.
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly why we wanted to pull everybody together like this, just for this discussion. So thank you, Charles, for sharing. This is Stephen.
This is Deb, Jersey Shore Trinity. After listening to all this excellent information, I'm realizing that our housekeeper and organist, they're on a salary, but they don't have a contract. Should they have a contract, a written contract?
I think that would be prudent. I don't know if it's a legal, I don't think it's a legal requirement. But I would definitely have a written agreement with them. And a lot of that,
even if it's just a job description, you know, that's assumed as a contract, but yeah.
Thank you.
Chad, I sent you a link that shows that labor law.
Oh, great. Thank you.
You could just send out if you want.
Yes, I will send that out to everybody here.
You want to put in the
I did have a question about financial reviews versus audits. Audits are like $10,000 a pop, and I just wonder, is the vernacular the correct, that you're expecting churches to do audits each year?
So
Or is it internal within the vestry and the treasurer?
technically speaking, the canons, our canons for our diocese, the canons for the national church say the same thing. Every parish has to have an annual audit. It's probably the one canon that is most ignored in the Episcopal Church, and probably every other church too, because it's just not realistic. It's not affordable for most. And not only are they expensive, and just for the record, I've gone through this year, I've done 3 years worth of audits for the diocese because we kind of got behind things because of COVID. It's a lot of work on the parish end. So we're working on developing a more formal guidelines. And I have lost my Zoom. Hold on one second here. More formal.
We're still hearing you, Chad.
You're still here.
Okay, well, there we go. Kind of a more formal schedule that would be based on the size of the parish and their assets in terms of what the diocese would require. But to simplify it as much as possible, there's a full-blown audit. You hire, an accounting firm, a CPA. It costs you, 8 to 15 grand, and gives you more work than you could shake a stick at. Then there is below that is a kind of like a financial review that also would be provided by an accounting firm that is not a full-blown audit. It's more of they kind of take a quicker look at your books. It's less expensive, but it doesn't have the they won't provide as hard, fast statements to the outcome of the audit. It's like, they'll say this was a financial review. We reviewed everything, but we don't guarantee everything, if you know what I mean. And then I think the third option is you have kind of like a financial review, but you utilize like a neighboring parish, or a non-neighboring parish, but we'd like to kind of get things more geared in that direction, that parishioner, a couple of people, volunteers from one parish would come in, check your books, check your procedures, and all of that's really well laid out in that financial handbook that Tom showed on the website, the business practices book, and they kind of lay out what you should look at, and so we encourage parishes to do that on an annual basis. Again, sometimes that's not realistic, either because of finding a parish that's willing to do that, or having the time and such to do it. But so we're trying to set up some guidelines where a parish may do a financial review, let's say every year, but every third year they would need to do a full-blown audit, or maybe every fourth year. We just haven't settled on kind of a final outcome for that. One other thing that we're looking at, and again, at the diocese level, we're exceptionally thin on financial related labor. In other words, it's myself, and then I have a bookkeeper 15 hours a week. It's just massively understaffed. So long hours. the Diocese of Bethlehem, for example, kind of almost has 3 full-time people or 2.5 full-time people handling their books. So what they've been able to do, and I think it's probably because they can leverage resources a little better because of the staffing, is they have an excellent volunteer committee at the diocesan level that will come in and provide financial review services for a parish. That would be ideal for us. So as we get to this convention and let's say reunification were to be approved, then between the two dioceses, then I think we stand much more of a chance of bringing that to fruition.
Yep. But like Chad said, we've had a lot of the parishes that have done it, that worked with a team of a couple people from a neighboring parish, or someone with typically within the convocation, just because geographically it's easier to do that. They find that probably half a day, and they can do a good process audit for a year's worth of, they're not going through every receipt, they're doing random sampling like an auditor would do, and able to get it performed and sign off on it, so that you have that, the full-blown audit is when you're changing priests. That's
Yeah.
typically one of the biggest requirements, is having that done.
I just want to, Debbie Sakas from Trinity Williamsport. We're just finishing up our annual audit program checklist, and I'm not sure if this is something that comes from the diocese or if it was something that was, but it's like a 4 or 5 page checklist that just you go down through and you list all you check off your documents, match up your documents. And we're really fortunate because we have a person who does the bookkeeping is a whiz. But
that helps.
Yes, it is. And she's a wonderful record keeper too. And she knows right where to put her hands on things. But I would say it probably takes, not counting the time that she puts in, probably about a total of about 10 hours. I think that the 3 of us spent doing this this time. This checklist, I think we've managed to do every year for the last several years. It's not difficult, but it could be time consuming if you didn't have a good record keeper.
That's a huge difference, definitely, in the audit.
Yeah,
is your record keeping, and we started to store stuff electronically about 2 years ago. We got a couple of scanners, and any invoice that comes in, we save it on a scan, save it on one of our network drives. And I'm telling you, that sure does beat come audit time. When doing these 3 audits, you can only imagine how many documents they're asking for, and bank statements and everything. And it's so nice just to go in there and click and grab like a year's worth of statements and hit send, versus,
I want to be mindful of everyone's time here. We're at the top of the hour. Shad and I can stay on longer if you still have questions. We're happy to stay on and field what we can.
Yeah. So yeah, if you have to go, just feel free to leave, but we're welcome to talk more. But Debbie, if you have a blank sample of that checklist, I wouldn't mind seeing
I don't,
it.
but I'm sure Sherry could get one for you.
Yeah, I'd be curious to look at it. And again, in the business practices handbook that's on our website there, put out by the Episcopal Church, there's also a really good checklist.
That may be where this came from. I'm not sure. I've been doing this. I've been involved with this off and on for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And not every year doing it, but we basically used the same form And it does somewhere on here does mention the Diocese of Central PA. So I'm assuming that
it's probably then, yeah, she
it
doesn't
could
even
very well
send
be
it.
from the manual. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. But I'll have ask Sherry to send you a copy of that.
Okay. Great, thank you.
I know she's off today, but
That's
Does it start at the top?
unacceptable.
huh?
That's unacceptable.
Debbie, does it start at the top, audit program checklist, and you have
Yeah,
general
audit
information?
program checklist for
Yeah.
blank for the
It's right out-
year.
Yeah, right out of the manual.
So and we select a month to audit. Several things we audit for the whole year, like the discretionary fund, and there are a few other things that are audited for the whole year, but most things, deposits, receipts, are just for the audit month.
That's right out of the guidelines for the congregation. So yeah,
Okay.
excellent. That's that's yeah, and it's quite comprehensive, as you know. It's
Yeah, it
a lot of
is.
stuff.
And there have the years that I've actually worked on the audit, there have been 3 of us plus Sherry there to answer questions. Sherry's the bookkeeper for those of you who don't know, and her parish administrator. I as treasurer, pretty much the only things that I can work on are the things that I don't have a signing ability on. But where was I going with this? But there've been three of us in addition to Sherry working on this, and we've put in maybe 2 or 3 hours over a space of 2 or 3 weeks. 2 or 3 hours one day a week. And so that's again, thanks to Sherry's abilities and bookkeeping. It takes time, but it's not as difficult as it would be otherwise.
Yeah, you find out real quick how organized your record keeper is.
Oh my gosh, the worst part.
It's just in a big box, and you go, okay, we got to straighten this out.
Yeah.
And usually the first audit, you find religion real quick. Okay, we're not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Kind of a little bit on the same topic, but also going back to the role of the treasurer and such. One of the things that we kind of did that I think's worked out, and Tom, you tell me differently if it is, that's worked out really well in managing the treasurer's role and the commitment, the time commitment that it requires. So we at the diocese, we use a third-party software cloud platform called ShareFile to save all of our documents. It's in the it's encrypted, but it's remote, so we don't need a server here anymore. It's kind of paid for itself. But my bookkeeper and I save everything financial related on that cloud drive. The bank copies of the bank statements, the QuickBook reports, and anything financial related. And why that works really well is it used to be our treasurer would have to come in the office, then ask me for the hard copies of all the transactions from this time to this time, and check off whatever they went through. Here it's worked out, at least from our end, great, because I know Tom has access to every financial document that exists with the diocese, and he knows where to go and grab. Like, he knows, okay, I got to pull up this bank statement, I'm going to go through it, and if something looks wonky on it, he's going to ask me about it. Or if something just isn't right, but it's something he can do on his own time, wherever he is in the world. So that's another benefit of kind of the remote storage of documents, and making the treasurer's role a lot easier. You can go in and look up an invoice, and occasionally I'll get the text from Tom saying, why are we paying sales tax on that? So it reminds me to go in and get our sales tax exemption set up with the vendor and such. But I like it because it provides protection for me, knowing that I'm doing my job the right way, but I just feel better knowing somebody else is looking at things. As Tom's role as treasurer, he's meeting his fiduciary responsibility in terms of making sure to periodically check things. And then with those two things happening, then everybody feels better. So
yeah, and the auditors will reflect that too, that there's additional, like I think Judy, I think it was Judy or was it Debbie that was saying, you know, there's certain things that she can't look at because she signs on those, and that's
Right.
absolutely correct. You know,
Right,
you have to
right.
have a good delegation of responsibility, so you're not okaying your own work and that type of stuff. That, you know, and again, the small parishes, that's tough. I understand that because you know you know you've got, you know, the old 80-20 rule where you've got, you know, 5 people that are very, very involved in the church, and they're doing all the heavy lifting. It's tough. You gotta pull
One
in.
of Sherry does save things to the cloud also. She uses Dropbox. So I mean, but it's probably a similar thing to what you're talking to ShareFile.
Yes,
that's great. That's great.
So I think just about everything that needs to go to be viewed by various parties is on Dropbox for us.
Right.
So,
Wayne, did you have a question?
I was just going to say, Tom and Chad, thanks for putting this together. I do need to drop off for another engagement, so thanks for putting this together.
Right.
We'll be back here next month at the same time,
same
place,
station.
So feel free to join us again.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks.
You too.
I just want to say thank you for putting everything on the website. I've been doing this for about 10 years. And when I first started, just trying to get information was a nightmare.
Yes.
So I really appreciate having it all there. Thank you.
Well, Kathleen, if you find you're missing anything, let us know, because unless somebody says, hey, you know, why isn't the XYZ out there? And we didn't know anybody used that. So yeah, let us know.
Well, I'm grateful to have what I have, you know, but thanks, I will.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks. Hey, Tom, that reminds me of a question I was going to ask on the under the resources online. There's a section in there for clergy compensation. There's a guideline there.
Yes.
Yes.
And in fact, I printed it out.
Yep.
Does it recognize that table?
Oh, I sure do.
Yeah.
We agonize
Actually,
over
we have used that extensively. Is there any plan to update that for?
So the one you have looks like it's a, that was the original resolution that went through. I think we have to do it every 3 years. And then there's on the website, there's a link right below that one that you have that has the rates for 2024. It doesn't have all the other stuff, but it has that chart of what they are for 2024. I'm going to update that for 2025 based on the 2.9%. And that'll be posted again. The goal is in the next 2 weeks. And then, and again, those are minimums. And also if a parish runs into a real problem being able to even meet that, you know, have a discussion with the bishop. And then I believe at the next convention, we'll be presenting, if I have my timing of the cycle right, they'll, you know, we put together a committee to review the clergy compensation, how it's compensated, is it fair, but not outrageous, and then we'll have a whole new 3-year cycle of them.
Okay, so what you're going to do is just use the same numbers and move them up 2.9%.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, but
okay.
but
so
not each box though. You're only moving up their core compensation and their housing allowance numbers.
Right.
By that 2.9%.
Right.
Social Security adjusts automatically.
Right.
Everything else.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, what Chad will do then every 3 years is he'll go through the agonizing pain of doing some heavy duty research. He has a couple of resources.
Yeah,
I guess I would call them HR resources that compare clergy comp across the country, and then they try to regionalize it so that we're talking with, Northeast United States or whatever to look at those numbers and then make more of a change. But that happens every 3 years. That's
And then
quite a
you have
study.
the fun of going through and trying to recalculate everything in clergy compensation, which is such a outdated, backwards process. It took me probably 3 years to finally feel comfortable talking about it. So
All tied back into the IRS laws of what's
Yeah,
deductible and not, and
and-
what they can put in housing and what they can put in
Right.
salary. And
it historically has been the impression that, clergy were undercompensated, kind of have chosen a life of frugalness and borderline poverty.
Piety.
Or piety. And if you look at the numbers, it's they do, I think they do exceptionally well, really at all levels. Either it's starting out of the gate, or whether or not they've been doing it for 20 years. So
Yeah. Well, they have good benefits too. I mean, between retirement
and the pension and
yeah.
At the
pension.
hours they put in and then the people that pull at them, I wouldn't want their job.
Yeah.
No.
That is true.
We're very blessed to
Absolutely.
have who we have on our pulpits, because we've got
Only thing worse than the clergy's job is being bishop, I think. So
yeah. Yeah, she has 3,000 people, 5,000 people.
At least
tracking.
you didn't say treasurers. So
that's the best.
The life of
job.
Riley.
Tom, just one other question, just to clarify on the website, where am I going to find that list for the audit, that Deb was talking about?
Let me show you again
Yeah.
here, since I just went back in to look at it myself. Let me find it here again.
Under
How do I keep losing this so quickly? Let me get back here. Parish treasurers. Get back here.
That seems like a wonderful website. I'm going to have to go through that item by item. Since there's
it's easy to
apparently
miss.
a lot for me
Easy
to
not
learn.
to, if you don't know it's there to look, it's sort of like walking in the Library of Congress and where do I find a certain book? It's, you don't know where you are. When you go to let me go back to here and go to the financial resources.
Okay.
See that, Susan? And then you go
All right. Yep.
Then we come down here and you go to parish treasurers and financial administrators.
Okay.
And then you get into the audit guidelines and tools.
Okay.
And this is the section
right.
that she was talking right here. And it
Okay.
takes you right to that little blurb. It's the whole manual here, but you don't want to go through all that when you're specifically look, because the whole manual is available.
Okay.
Yeah, but we extracted the audit section separately.
Yeah,
so
the audit guideline tools, the taxes are the same thing.
Okay.
And then what was it Charles, I think, was just holding up was this right in here, which is the comp. And this Chad will be updating here in a few weeks. And again, it's definitely an eye test right now, but it's
I know.
that's why I printed it out, because they didn't want to keep straining his eyes, and I can understand that. There's a lot on this chart. But does that help?
Yeah. Yes, it does. Thank you. And I'll log on to that and go through that. Like I said, I've not been doing this very long, and so there's a whole lot for me to learn. But I am correct where as the church, we don't pay state tax on things that
sales tax. Yeah, sales tax typically correct. Hopefully your vendor's asking you for a tax exemption form, and if you don't have those, Chad can get you the correct one. Here's an example of a parish treasurer's job description. I think I borrowed this from the Diocese of Chicago, but it's the same type of thing. Every diocese has a website, and most of them have their job descriptions posted. And this is pretty generic. Generally, what you need to do, and so you can look at that, Susan, and just make sure that you're sort of at least covering what you think are the bases that need to be done.
Yeah.
But when you have questions, you can reach out.
All right. And Chad, can you send me please one of those tax exemption forms? Because I've not seen one yet in the office. And I'm not saying there's not one there and hasn't been used, but I haven't seen it.
Susan, which parish again?
St. Paul's in Bloomsburg.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions for anyone?
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Well, I'm going to stop sharing here to make sure I can see everybody. All right, everyone. If not, I won't continue this pain, but I'm glad everyone joined us, and it was a pleasure meeting everyone. And please join us next month. Was there? I don't have any great takeaways here of what we wanted to do next month.
We'll come up with something really good.
Yeah.
It may actually just be me and you, Tom, out there on that farm, racing horses, but
they have a riding circle just off to the side there.
Perfect.
People, so I can fall off a horse. Yes.
But I'm sure we can maybe just hit upon like the parochial report or something.
That would be coming up. The budgets and parochial reports and how those tie together. Chad, I'll let you do that one because you're the master. You're the master of that, and that's
how to make the parochial report fun.
And Chad, that's not a bad idea. Why don't we start? So we'll start advertising that the next Finance Friday we'll be reviewing budgets and parochial reports, and that way people can say, "Oh, there is something there, maybe of interest."
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and we can revisit. The numbers that we have for assessment and withdrawals from endowment and clergy comp and all that. So in terms of
some of that won't be germane, I guess, to the individual parishes, but yeah, again, there's no secrets. If they want to know what it is, it's what it is. So.
Yep. Stephen, I'll hang on after at the end of this to talk about your question. Or we actually, can we talk about it in front of the group or?
Sure.
Okay.
Go for it. I'll sign out, guys.
Okay.
All right,
have a great weekend.
Thanks. You do the same.
Mm-hmm.
So, Stephen is with Christ Church, Jersey Shore.
Trinity Church.
Trinity.
It's close.
Got the town right.
There's only like 5 options. It's either Saint something or but they're potentially they're looking to acquire, or not acquire, sounds so unhuman, to call a new clergy member to their parish, which I think their initial plans are half-time.
Correct.
And currently, actually, that individual is they're not an employee technically of the diocese. But they're paid from the diocese because they're part of a Shape by Faith grant, and we just pay it out of the diocese. And I think their question is that something that that they as a parish could still continue if this role comes to fruition for that individual. And I don't see any reason why it can't. I'll need to bounce it off the bishop and talk to Tom a little bit more, but we
as far as still going through the Shape by Faith.
No, not going through Shape by Faith, but they would remain on our payroll, and then the parish would
reimburse the diocese,
reimburse us on a quarterly basis, maybe, or whatever.
Okay.
But the system is, they're already in the system, they're already set up and that kind of stuff. And maybe we would ask for a ultra small contribution to provide that service that would be far less than if you did it at commercial rates. So
sure.
But yeah, I'd like to explore that more, because those are the types of services that we're investigating. And we're aware of one diocese, I don't know how they do this, but one diocese that all clergy in the diocese are compensated through the diocesan offices. So that, you know, they have one person that I think, like Tom, you said, 1 day a week or 2 days a week.
She's basically, her full-time job is chasing down timesheets.
Yeah.
And for across, it's a parish that had remerged. And so they have, they have a huge geographic area, and they have basically two controllers, and one is just chasing down payroll and stuff and doing other special projects. But it's
But I'm sure it's nice for the parishes because
yeah, it frees them up, frees up those
Yeah.
resources. There's a lot of things I think that could be done to that end. It's not going to take over, the treasurer role like Dick would
Right.
like to have, but it would take over a lot of the grunt work that bookkeepers need to do for payroll and cutting accounts payable checks and a lot of
benefits,
that other
stuff
stuff.
like
But with it would take some work.
Yeah.
And it takes state staffing in Chad's office in order to facilitate that. But things that we've looked at that still looking.
Yep.
So.
I have one other question then. At St. Paul's, we have the sound system and a computer that we do the services every Sunday for those that can't make it into the church. Is there any grants that would be available from the diocese that would help us replace that sound system by chance?
We're partially working through that. The only traditional grant we still have running at the diocese is construction grants. And I've been working with the finance committee to see if we can make the argument that, replacing permanently affixed items such as a speaker system or a video system would be eligible for that. So that's going to be readdressed again at our next finance committee meeting. But one, I just saw last week, a group of parishes just submitted an application to Shape by Faith that's related to digital communications. Now, the catch is that you need to work this into a multi-parish, at least 2 parishes, yours and another's, but why not go for 3 or 4 parishes that want to do something along that technology line of, online services and maybe collaborating, or maybe one parish televises their service online each week and you switch. But it has to be some sort of collaboration that is focused on spirituality, which obviously any service would be, but also, financial vitality of the parish. And that would be, having more people, being aware of services and such. Anyway, I didn't read through the whole application yet, but
I have heard that and I forget the name of it, the Long Name Society does do small grants like that.
Okay.
Chad, can you get
Yeah.
Susan the contact information for them?
Sure.
They will do small, I don't, when I say small, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 grants for small projects like that.
Okay.
And, that would be some seed money. If it didn't take care of all of it, it could be a shot in the arm for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That'd
So
be great.
they're two most likely good options, and we'll have to get back to you on construction grants.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, everyone, I need to run.
Okay. Any other questions for anybody else?
Thank you for
Mhm.
putting this together. This is very informational for me.
Thank you for
I'm sure as well as
attending.
Thank
everybody
you
else.
so much.
And
I'm
we
glad
look,
everyone took something out of it. So I'm glad.
we look
Yeah.
forward
Very
to
good. Thank you all.
seeing you all again.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Have a great weekend.
Goodbye. You as well.
Yeah, thanks.